Turning now to the entirely man-made disaster that is Syria, journalists have tried mightily to cover the country's descent into a hellish cauldron of war. Still, public attention has waned over the 5 years of conflict, but that instantly changed last week with a single image. The footage, shared by an activist group, shows the immediate aftermath of a bombing in Aleppo. A small boy, pulled from the rubble, is placed in an ambulance. It is haunting, and CNN anchor Kate Baldwin is clearly moved.
We shed tears, but there are no tears here. He doesn't cry once. That little boy is in total shock.
The power of this image was so evident, newspapers around the world published it on their front pages. It's also been compared to another image that instantly galvanized public attention, when the body of 3-year-old Alian Kurdi washed ashore last year, a casualty and symbol of Syria's humanitarian crisis.
This is Omran. He's alive. We wanted you to know.
And now we all know Omran, and perhaps briefly the suffering of his people. All right, I'm going to say a little bit what you said about the weather coverage. I mean, there has been a tremendous amount of coverage of Syria. I mean, daily. It's everywhere. And it's not necessarily on the network news every day, but there's some mention of it. You can find as much as you want. You see something like this, quite honestly, it just humanizes it in a way that just makes you think more deeply about what is actually going on over there. And by the way, his older brother, 10 years old, Ankisha, I think his name is, died.
Yes.
You know, and that hasn't gotten that much coverage either, because everybody's focusing on a life that, you know, is so fragile, and he made it, but you know, we're not getting it.
It's horrifying, and this does put a human face on it, and that does change the way we react to it. Does it improve our understanding of who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, what, if anything, the United States ought to be doing? Actually, it doesn't do any of those things, but at least it does bring home the fact that terrible things are happening in this part of the world.
And it is an incredibly powerful image. I mean, just looking at it as a photo editor, the contrast between the clean, you know, almost clinical ambulance interior and the dirt covering him. It's a tremendously powerful image, but I share a little bit of Dan's cynicism here. I think back to the example on the beach, the boy on the beach. Did that radically, we were talking about it on Beat the Press, we were, you know, we got tons of attention. Did it change the course of anything? I think it's pretty questionable. I mean, Syria is just a war that we as a society have allowed to sort of drift in the background. It's background noise. This is something that can punctuate it and bring it back to the fore for a bit, but I suspect in a week we'll be back to the election.
I saw it, I cried. But think about that photo during the Vietnam War era of that little girl, naked and screaming in pain after a village had been napalmed. Everyone remember it?
Yeah.
Did that end the war? Did that change anything in the ensuing 50 years in terms of man's inhumanity to man? No, it did not. So maybe it heightened our awareness temporarily, but I'm down with the cynics. I don't see much change resulting.
But it does
from
make
this.
you think about it, and I think there's some significance in that. It makes you think about it, even if it's just in a passing kind of way.
Thank goodness the camera was there.
Yeah, well, the activist group has been filming all of these kinds of activities with the focus on children for that specific point. So we should say that. I think what it does is it speaks to the longevity of it. So if it is in the background, and it is for many people, and you've forgotten about it, then suddenly you're reminded, oh, this is going on, and this is the consequence of it. Frankly, for me, it was like, I didn't even know there was anything left standing. Because, no, I'm serious, because, and the story that really got me more even than seeing this child, which was pretty bad, is the doctor who died, who has been working in that hospital, saving lives, and he was killed. I mean, that spoke to me about the longevity of this war, for which, as you say, we don't know who the bad guys or the policies or whatever are.
And someone pointed out that that little boy has never slept a night in bed without shelling going on around him.
His little brother was out on the street, which is why he died.
Yeah.